Hey guys, I'm the 50s Kid. I'm going to do a quick review here on this Eastwood half-inch torque angle wrench. It's part number 13622. I bought this for my recent engine rebuilds because I wanted to have something that would accurately do torque angles, not only torquing, but torque angles as well. I do like the product. I like the look of the product in general. And I like its function as a torque wrench, well enough. It was $99, and I would venture to say that it's probably worth about $99. This tool obviously directly is trying to compete with the snap-on version, which is like this tool has a light. It lights up when you're it lights up red when you haven't reached the torque, and then it turns green when you have. That's just like the snap-on tool. It also has a beeper on it, so it'll beep more and more rapidly as you approach the correct torque, and then it'll give you a solid beep when you have reached that torque. So in those respects, it operates kind of similar to the snap-on tool, but it's kind of vastly different in my opinion when it comes to the functionality of the keypad and how to set things up. The first annoying thing about this particular tool is the fact that when you want to set up the torque that you're going to be torquing to, you actually have to set it to one of these 5 memories. Over here you'll see there's an M1, so that's like the first memory setting. This is the setting over here, so I've got 40, and it's actually Newton meters that I've got it programmed to. You can change it, you can change the units. You can see it says NM up here. You can change that to foot-pounds if you want, but I've just got everything working in Newton meters, which is really nice. It'll do the conversion for you, so you don't have to do any math. If you look up specs and you see Newton meters, you can just put in Newton meters, or if you see foot-pounds, you can put in foot-pounds, and you don't have to do the conversion between the two, which is really nice. But if you want to torque to a specific thing, you actually have to set the memory, and there are 5 memory slots. You can see I've got 40, 20, 45, 25, and 60. The thing that this doesn't have that I would really like is I would like the ability to set a particular torque that I want to torque something to without having to program that into the memory setting. Because if I want to bump between different torques, if I'm doing a couple of different things, it's really annoying to have to go and set this memory each time, and I never really remember how to do it. And this keypad is not exactly intuitive. I think you have to hold this plus, and that's going to be setting that particular torque. And then I always think you got to push the M button to move it over, but I believe you have to push this down here. And I think I hit the M button there. That actually went to the different torques. Let's go back in there so we can take a look at that. That first setting is actually going to be in Newton meters. So you're going to set to, let's just say we're going to set to 40. If I push the M, this second setting would be an additional torque angle that I'm going to do after I get to that initial torque setting. So to give you a for instance, I've got this set on 40 Newton meters right now. Let's just go ahead and torque this bolt to 40. So you can see we're already there. It's blinking green. So at this point, if this is basically if you were to use this to torque head bolts. Head bolts usually have like an initial torque, and then you want to do an additional torque angle. So in order to get that torque angle, you saw that I had it set up at 90 degrees. What I would do is I would push this button, and you have to wait and let the wrench sort of get its bearings. So now you see it's got 0 degrees. So now I can go ahead and give this another 90, and then it beeps when it's 90, but you can see it's continuing to beep, and I have to push the button in order to get it to end, which is really, really annoying. And every time I go and I switch to another head bolt, I have to reset it, and then I have to push the button and wait and let it, again, do a torquing and let it get initialized so it can do a new torque angle. And then I got to do another torque, and then I have to push the button again. And it's a really slow process, especially compared to the snap-on, where you can just change it to that torque angle mode, and then you can just bump from one bolt to the next and just do 90 beep, 90 beep, 90 beep. Really, really annoying. My third complaint, that was my second complaint, by the way. My third complaint is, you notice how this thing just went to 10, 11? Look, I'm moving it around. and it's going to 20. This thing doesn't really go off of this. It goes off of like an accelerometer, probably, kind of like maybe like an iPhone would, where it's got it can tell, you know, where the wrench is moving in space, and that's how it's actually telling the angle. It's not telling the angle of this, and this is particularly annoying because the whole point of this, of using a digital torque angle wrench that keeps track of it digitally, is if you don't get enough swing when you're doing that angle, you can just come back here and move it around and reset and then do it again. But you'll notice when I was moving backwards, it didn't move. But when I start to move forwards again to take up the slack that's in here, that's in the drive, that's in the socket, when you go to take up that slack, the tool can tell that it's moving forward again in this direction. And so it counts degrees, and that's wrong. That you then screwed up your whole measurement that way. So that is my third complaint about this tool, and it's really, really annoying. It basically means that wherever you are, if you're torquing head bolts inside of an engine bay and you go to do like a 90 degree, you have to make sure that you have that 90 degree worth of sweep ahead of time. You can't do a 45 and then reset the tool and do another 45 like you can with the snap-on tool. So for that reason, I particularly, for those two reasons, I particularly do not like the torque angle mode or aspect of this wrench. And if I were buying it specifically to do head bolts and such, I wouldn't, quite honestly, because it's so annoying to use. And in particular, if I was going to use it on a number of different engines, I only used, I bought this for doing my, for rebuilding my BMW engine that I just did, and for doing just that one engine, that one time, it was good enough. I was able to use it and I was able to get by. I was able to work with its problems. But if I were a professional technician and I had to use this quite often, I would not be happy with this tool at all. I would, it would be much better advised to save up my money, and, you're going to spend 4 times as much. I think those snap-on wrenches are around the $400 range, but it's definitely worth it when you take these problems into consideration. So there you go. That, I mean, other than, the annoying torque angle part, as far as using this as a normal torque wrench, it works just fine. It'll tell you when you got to 40 Newton meters and such. It even has a peak torque feature where if you set it up to peak torque, and I forget how to do this. Again, that's another one of my complaints, is that this interface is not intuitive at all. I think you have to hold down memory. So right here I'm on just the T, which I think is just torque. And if I change that to P, that's going to show me my peak torque. So if I go here and I try to give it some torque here, it'll remember the maximum torque that I was giving it just then. So that's kind of a useful feature, and I've used that sometimes for telling how much torque is on a bolt. I've set this into reverse, set this like this. So I've used it to loosen off a bolt, and it'll tell me how much torque was on that bolt, or how much torque I applied in order to get that thing off. So 42.8 in that particular case in order to get it loosened. So, I thought I think that's sort of one feature that I do like. But yeah, the rest of the features, as far as using it as a normal torque wrench, my only complaint is that you can't change the torque setting manually with like a plus and a minus, relatively quickly. You have to set it into memory each time, and that to me is a little bit annoying. But that's not $400 annoying to me. Like for $100, I can live with that. But as far as the rest of the aspects of the tool, yeah, I would probably save up and buy one of those really nice snap-on wrenches, if I'm being totally honest. So that is my honest review about the Eastwood torque angle wrench. So take all those things into consideration before you make your purchase. If you enjoyed the video, toss me a subscribe. Thanks for watching.